Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we're traveling north up I-71. Made sure I got the highway correct, and we're going to be stopping in Columbus, Ohio. And that's right, we're going to be talking to High Bank Distillery. So make sure you sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Adam, thank you for joining the Bourbon Lens this week. Been longtime fans and really appreciate all the tasty whiskey we've gotten to try over the years, and the Instagram Live we did do way back when, but excited to talk to you again. And so thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, it's great when we have different brands, even if we've chatted a few times, in other avenues, to sit down and have a dedicated conversation. And you all have got a lot of moving parts because there's a big release that just happened. But before we get into that Mac Daddy, because everything's been worked up to make this happen, for those who don't know your all story, do you mind just starting off a little bit, telling the brief, elevator pitch for folks about High Bank?
Yeah, sure. So, appreciate you guys having me. This is always fun to come on and chat with people like you guys. So for me, High Bank was a project that started, 2015, 2016. My background is in design and brand management. Originally brought me to Columbus, was going to Columbus College of Art and Design. I'm from northeastern Ohio originally, Canton, Akron area. But I was in the design world professionally for about 12 years before we decided to start High Bank. We started with the concept originally as a brewery, shifted over to a distillery because in the state of Ohio, it was actually illegal up until 2017 to have a restaurant attached to a distillery. Distilleries before that could only serve 4 1/4 ounce pours of alcohol in a tasting room, could not be put into a cocktail, and they could not serve any food. So when we got wind of this law changing, as we were coming up with this idea for a restaurant brewery, it was my idea to switch us over to a distillery. My dad's lived in Louisville, Kentucky for almost 20 years now. Whiskey is something that I kind of grew up with my dad. He moved down there when I was in kind of in the middle of college, right when I turned 21, and we had motorcycles, and I'd go down there and ride, through horse country, and remember seeing my first ever rick house and taking a tour, and it just became something that him and I did together. So when we had an opportunity to switch over to a distillery, getting the news that the law was changing, we thought it was a no-brainer. So I was either going to have to learn how to brew beer, or I was going to have to learn how to distill. So why not just learn how to distill instead? So
yeah.
So we ended up opening up our doors in 2018. It's been a whirlwind of a few years. 2018, we opened up our distillery and restaurant. 2020, obviously, COVID happened, which was crazy time. 2022, we opened up our second restaurant with a small distillery in a retail shop. We expanded, we tripled the size of our distillery footprint-wise in 2023. And then in 2024 here, this past year, we opened up our third restaurant, as well as a speakeasy in the bottom of that restaurant in Westerville, Ohio, which is where Whiskey War, the name of Whiskey War and the history of Whiskey War, is founded in. So it's been quite the journey over the years.
Man, that is a lot in 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
I looked at Scott's face, and he was kind of like dumbfounded. Yeah. He doesn't have any grays. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's I do. You just gotta talk to my kids. They find all the gray hairs in my beard and hair. They point them out daily.
Kids are good at pointing out the darndest things, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, for sure.
Oh man. No, that's crazy. I did not know how much has happened in a short period of time, which is awesome, right? That speaks to, one, the success of what you all have created, but two, just a culture of growth in Ohio. And Ohio is a big state for a lot of people when it comes to pushing alcohol sales, like the OHLQ, right? Like they do a great job from a beverage perspective, moving a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, they do. It's not, once you kind of get used to playing in that sandbox, it's actually a pretty nice sandbox to play in once you kind of learn the rules.
For sure.
So
It's not the Wild West like Kentucky is.
Correct. There's a lot of structure behind it, for good and for bad.
Yeah, definitely. So for you, like, what's it like to be in a city and state that has kind of amassed like this love for America's spirit in whiskey?
Yeah, I think it's for us. We're always fighting with the state below us. I feel like and when I say fighting, it's the perception of the consumer, right? It's not that we're actually physically fighting the state of Kentucky. It's the fact that Kentucky has such a stronghold on your average consumer. Your enthusiast, kind of knows their stuff and knows the differences and stuff. But the amount of times I get asked, still to this day, I'm giving a tour. Well, how can you call it bourbon? It's not made in Kentucky. It's like it's just, you're always fighting this thing of, this bourbon thing is a Kentucky only aspect. And so, there's a couple brands in Ohio that I feel like have done a really, really strong job of kind of flipping that script a little bit. And I feel like we're one of them. It's been fun to get some notoriety, with our kind of flagship product, which is our Whiskey War product, and the awards that we've won with that and the notoriety around that. And that's really, that's who we are as a brand. It wasn't the plan from the start, as you've alluded to, one of the products that we most recently came out with, we thought this was going to be our thing that we do, that we're going to be most well known for. But in that journey, Whiskey War's really become our bread and butter for sure.
Yeah. And I think Whiskey War is really approachable for the average consumer because it balances, sweet and spicy. It's got a variety unbeknownst to itself, right? Because not only do you have, Whiskey War, and then you have it at barrel proof, and then you have single barrels of it, you have finished barrels of it, you have double oaked barrels, double oaked barrels. Mm-hmm. So you all have done a great job of taking that brand and saying, here's line extensions, but you can always come back to home from that line extension.
Right.
Which is really cool. And doing that with sourced liquid to make sure it's consistent and replicable, I think is also good, because the batch to batch variance isn't like too high. Like you'd have to be picking out some gnat's ass details.
Right. And I think that's what's kind of what I love about it, right? Is when we're sourcing from a larger distillery like MGP, who makes very consistent product, there are still differences, right? So for a whiskey enthusiast, batch to batch, it's really fun, to taste the difference between these different blends that we make of the exact same stuff. But yields can be different, wood tastes different, how long it was aged affects the flavor. All of that stuff goes into every single batch. And there are some differences that we try to celebrate. We do our own little short form, 90-second videos that we call the War Room, and we review every single batch, of barrel proof and special release product that comes out. And it's fun to look back and watch those and see all the differences.
Mm-hmm. So when did the first Whiskey War actually hit the market?
Yeah, so that journey's been fun. So the first original Whiskey War, the Black Label, the 88 proof, right? That hit the market in May of 2018. Okay. Soon after, when I blended the product of Whiskey War, sourcing all the whiskey and figuring out what there's 3 different mash bills that we blend together. It's a high rye and 2 bourbons that we blend together in a specific ratio for Whiskey War. I blended it at barrel strength. Barrel strength was always what I wanted to release. So we released that Black Label in May of 2018. And barrel strength, I believe, came out in July, August of that 2018 timeframe. But what's always a fun story, and this is just some of these competitions, and really it's the best competitions. One of the best ones is obviously San Francisco World Spirits Competition. The reason why it's the best is just because of the notoriety that happens behind it, all the stories, all the influencers, all the writers, the people that pay attention to it. And so to put that in context, 2018 to 2021, that 3-year period, we released 12 batches of barrel proof. So roughly 4 a year is what we were going through. And that same time frame, from 2021 to the end of 2024, so a 3-year time frame, we went from batch 12 and we just dumped batch 102. So that's the growth, that you can see from something like that, right? So it's real. It's absolutely real. And which is why we've been able to expand in hospitality realms too, and grow our distillery. And for us, it's not about super quick growth. It's about smart growth, stuff that's sustainable and attainable, for our teams to continue to push out.
So have your batch sizes gotten a little bit larger over time, or are we staying with a similar
no,
size ratio?
We do a six barrel blend
Yeah.
for every single batch, every single one. So that has not changed. So
They're just,
and I think
just
that's
selling a little bit quicker this time around.
yeah. They just we sell. We can go through almost probably 3 a month versus 3 a year. So
Good problem to have.
yeah, it is.
Well, and people talk about, like, I hate this term. There's a lot of terms I hate in whiskey. Whiskey or juice, not a fan. And it's like, it's liquid. It's not juice. Juice is what my child drinks. And I don't like the term whiskey glut. Like, everyone, like, it's everywhere, and I hate it. Can we just say that we've produced a lot of whiskey? Like, why do we got to come up with a term? Like, now it's like you all have the opportunity of people have overproduced a lot of whiskey. And so that makes sourcing for whiskey or for Whiskey War a lot easier, I feel like.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's pros and cons to every situation, right?
For
us,
sure.
we see it on both sides a lot. Our brand is still in growth mode. Again, it's because we haven't overextended ourselves. And so we can be strategically choosing where we want to grow to.
Yeah.
And it helps now that our cost of goods is being cut in less than half because of the price of barrels have gone down so much. I mean, if you look at where we were purchasing barrels sourcing wise before COVID, and the price points and our profitability at that time versus a lot more sales, but our profitability, the percentage of profit that we keep, has gone way down. It's because we're paying over 100% more than we were paying, previously on whiskey barrels. That's just how the prices went up. We used to pay $17.50 a barrel for something that was 4 years, and we paid as much as $3,800, for that same barrel during post-COVID, when I would say 2021, 2022, and now the prices have gone down a lot.
Yeah.
Back to those normal, I would say more normal prices of where it should be.
Well, it's so funny. Like, I think we get into these, like, the enthusiast or like the bourbon extremist, and everyone like the fall of bourbon or fall of whiskey. And I'd be interested in your point of view because you're an emerging brand. But like, my background's econ, right? So this is economy at scale is playing, right? So the market exploded, right? So what happened? We produce. Well, once the market catches up, demand shrinks down from the actual supplier, like not from the consumer standpoint. We're still consuming. It's just there's more whiskey available, so prices have to go back down to drive back volume up, and then that creates more demand. Like, I feel like this is basic economics, but like, we're missing something in the whole thing of it. I don't know. That's just my point of view from like basic like econ, like 101 and 201.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. I'm not too dissimilar from that perspective. My perspective is more really from the state of Ohio, and kind of what's happening here. And I see, consumption is down in some areas, but the main areas, and this is again just Central Ohio, and we have a unique perspective into it with owning 3 restaurants. Hospitality's down. Hospitality's down across the state of Ohio drastically. I mean, you're down 10 to 15% across the state. People are still going out, but they're going out at the prime times and the weekends and at nights. People are they're packing their lunches more. They're not going out to happy hours often because people are saving money. Cost of goods has gone up, inflation has gone up, and labor, has gone up. So menu prices at restaurants have gone up like crazy. And so even me with my family, I work full time. My wife works full time. We have 3 kids. We used to go out to eat 2 to 3 times a week just because it was easier to go out to eat than make the house a disaster and have to cook something and clean up from dinner and all that stuff. Now, I mean, I own a restaurant and we maybe go out to eat once every other week, right? It's just this thing of like, we started going out where we could spend $60 for the 5 of us to go out. Now we're spending $100, for the 5 of us to go out. I'm just like, no, not worth it. And so I know in the state of Ohio, because of OHLQ, it being a liquor control state, we have access to all the numbers for every single brand. It's an open source thing. So I can see what Tito's sales are in Ohio. I can see what Bacardi is. I can see what any competitor of ours. And there's some brands that are down 30%. And it's because those brands that all shop or all sell their stuff to bars and restaurants, where bars and restaurants are down, consumption is down. Now, retail has still seen an incline in the state of Ohio. Now, not a 30% incline to offset what is going on in the wholesale market. But to your point, a lot of the issue is, and I saw this firsthand, is you've seen all the distilleries over the last 4 years that have built new facilities, expanded their facilities. They've, doubled or tripled their capacity to distill. And to your point exactly, there's so much whiskey out there right now. There's just, it's been overproduced. So for little guys like us that are still in the realm of wanting to grow, that's a positive.
Yeah.
But for the big guys that have overproduced and have to shut stuff down, that's not a positive. And I feel for him for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, people are just like taking shots at a big name here in Louisville, quite honestly. And it's like, dude, they got to run a business. Like, they're a publicly traded entity. Like, unfortunately that sucks. Riffs happen all the time.
Because they got to hit their numbers. Like being publicly traded in something like this is so hard.
It is,
because you become so short-sighted because you're trying to hit quarters or yearly numbers.
Yeah.
And you're not focused on the longevity health of your brand.
Yeah. And we're not going to continue to see, these 30% increases like we did during COVID, where people had extra funds because they weren't going out, right? Inflation was kind of neutralized for a little bit. And then once the bubble burst on like freedom, like going back out, like, the cost of goods, like next thing you know, like if you wanted to go build a house, it was 40% more expensive.
Yep.
Like those things are just really, really unique, I think. And we hope that, over time we can get out of a spiral of inflation and, we get all that back on track. Because it really is, it's a numbers game, right? Like that's what it comes down to.
It is. And we've seen it again on the restaurant hospitality side. It's leveling out. Like it's not as drastic as it used to be.
Yeah.
Even as drastic as it was 3 months ago. It's like, this isn't whiskey, but price of chicken went up 43% in 3 months. And it's like, how many places sell chicken? There's a lot of freaking places in Ohio that sell chicken.
Yeah.
And it's come down a little bit from it's just
it's little details. But like I'll tell you, my Chick-fil-A order, like it's gone down $1.50.
Yeah. But how much did it go up after COVID?
I used to eat at Chick-fil-A my whole meal. I always have to talk about food because food is amazing. So I go to Chick-fil-A breakfast on Thursday. I have a standing meeting Thursday mornings, and I get a spicy chicken fillet. I get the spicy chicken fillet hash brown scramble bowl and a large Diet Coke.
Yep.
So when I first started getting this order, it was like $8.50, give or take. It got as high as $12.60. We are now at $10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got it dialed in.
There's a pushback to value for sure.
Yeah.
When I first started going to Chick-fil-A, I was getting Chick-fil-A sandwiches for $2.45. That's
the good days.
And now the good days. I worked at Chick-fil-A for 6 years.
So do you say my pleasure still?
That was right at the time that I was leaving Chick-fil-A. They were forcing everybody to say my pleasure. So I was not brainwashed into the my pleasure movement. I just worked there in high school and in college for money.
Oh, hey.
So
there's worse places you could work at. I mean, the food's
I loved it. I loved it actually. Yeah. I worked at a lot of different ones.
Yeah. Oh man, Chick-fil-A is my jam. Oh
yeah, I still eat there all the time.
And if anybody's looking
that says a lot. That says a lot about a restaurant.
It does.
You can go back there after you've worked there.
There was nothing disgusting about the back end of Chick-fil-A. Everything was real chicken. It was quality stuff. Same stuff that I have in my fridge at home.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if you are feeling froggy, the new spicy grilled chicken sandwich deluxe is delightful.
Yeah, I've not had that yet. I'm looking forward to that.
I don't eat out enough to know or track the prices of my meals.
Oh, that's the nice thing about ordering
the same thing.
It's the nice thing about having an app, right? Because then you can go back and look at your history.
Oh yeah.
And so like, I don't eat a ton of fast food. I eat like Jimmy John's. I can tell you the price of that. Like for me and my wife to go to Jimmy John's, it's like $28. I'm like, this is stupid. So we don't go to Jimmy John's anymore.
Yeah.
Or Potbellies. Like I used to love both of those sandwich shops, but we used to have $5 footlong commercials at Subway. Now they're advertising a $6 meal deal for a 6-inch sandwich and chips and a drink. It's $6.99, but they're calling it a $6 deal. Oh man, people marketing folks, you'll get one over on us if we're not paying attention. But that's the food segment of the podcast.
Yeah, this is
brought to you by Jake.
Well, they got restaurants. They got restaurants, and that's the bonus of.
We're gonna do a shoot off and call the next one Burger Lens instead of Bourbon Lens. So.
Oh no! I had a burger tonight, and the best way to make a burger is, in my opinion, a nice pan fried burger. I like a pan fried burger, smashed
cast iron skillet.
Yeah, gotta get that thing seasoned, and just salt and pepper. I don't do anything crazy on them.
Yeah,
and
I'm the same way. Red meat, just salt and pepper.
Yeah, keep it simple. And what I found is I've tried like all the things. I do prefer, like if I'm feeling fancy, bacon and egg on a burger is phenomenal. And you don't have any other condiments on that. But like McDonald's, say what you want about whatever their food is. They do dress the burger, I think, appropriately. Ketchup, mustard, onions, and pickles. I feel like that is just a really solid way to eat a hamburger. And I've been going with that for like the last 3 weeks on burger night, which is Monday. So
okay.
Love burgers. Now it's not grill time. It's way too cold to be outside, like messing with the grill or the Blackstone. Or if not,
do you guys still have snow? Are you guys still covered in snow?
We're covered in ice. my front lawn is just one sheet of ice.
Yeah,
it's almost all gone at my house, which is great. But yeah, it's been miserable looking out and just seeing snow for 3 straight weeks.
Yeah. Well, people are like running into the banks, and it's just all like running into frozen snow. It's like, yes.
Oh yeah.
And I said frozen snow for a reason, because it snowed and then it froze.
Correct.
And then it got warm and then it melted
and then it froze again.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anywho,
dangerous.
We're going to talk about the cream of the crop right now before we get way too far off, because we've teased it enough. You did Whiskey War, and that's great. But you always had this project in mind of what your whiskey could be. And we are here, right? We've reached the precipice. It's in a different bottle, different design. You have a really nice, I think it's an Instagram video that I caught that explains a lot of, why you chose 93 proof, why the wolf, and all of that. So if people want to do that, just go check out the video on Instagram. I think you explain it better, and the visuals are good. But for you, what's that like passion project, right? You had this all together. This was the original concept, and to now see it in marketplace, what's that like?
Yeah, it's cool. I'm very happy with where it's at. I'm very excited for where it's going to continue to go. I tell people this is batch 1, which obviously people know that. So this is a blend of 5 barrels that we pulled from the first 8 or so barrels. It's basically barrel 8 down. We pulled 5 out of that and made this first batch. And as you can imagine, the very, very first barrels that you're putting back, it's a little sketch on dialing in a system and all that. So I'm actually very happy with some of the stuff that came out of those early ones. And Whiskey War has allowed us the proper time of aging this. This is at least 6 years old for everything that's gone into this. But I'm very excited to start tapping into some older barrels as well. It's been fun. I kind of just like sit back in awe sometimes. We didn't have a ton of this first batch. We had around 1,000 bottles coming out of this first batch. And we released it this past Friday. We basically released 750 in our 3 stores, and then we're throwing 240 bottles out into OHLQ liquor stores around Central Ohio starting this week. When I say this week, we're talking January, last week of January, right? And those 750, I thought would last for a couple weeks in our stores. They all sold out on Friday in our stores.
That's awesome.
So it was like that's the thing that like it was our largest bottle number sale day ever on Friday. It's the history of our company. And so it's stuff like that where I'm just kind of like, damn, like this is I hope people like it. That's then my next thought.
Yeah.
It's like I hope they're not disappointed, and what it is. I like it. It's completely different than Whiskey War, and that's what we kind of keep stressing to people is Whiskey War. I intentionally created the blend of Whiskey War to be totally different than our bourbon. These are not competing products. Whiskey War is a high rye mash bill. We're talking about 70% rye. This is a heavy wheated mash bill. You're talking over 35% wheat, that goes into this mash bill for our bourbon. So two very, very different, things. Whiskey War, where you start getting a lot of allspice and rye notes and caramel and vanilla, and this High Bank bourbon, you're getting like green apple and malted chocolate and, like a sweet grain notes on it. It's totally different. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott, I'll let you do your honor since you, drank it first. You can talk a little bit about it, and I'll kind of fill in some details. And I have one question afterwards. But Scott, go for it. What'd you get on this one?
Yeah, I mean it's almost like breakfast cereal to me. Like honeycomb cereal was kind of like the first thing that hit me. It's super like rich honey, but then it's also got a lot of like those cereal grains. So I was like going through my mental Rolodex of like, cereals as a kid. And I was like, wow, it's
Dude, I can totally get honeycomb right now. I never thought about that at all.
Like that was kind of my first thought. I was just like, this is like breakfast cereal, just sitting there sipping it. And I was like, I wish I had more, because I was like, I had to save some for tonight so I could have a little bit left. So now I'm back to it, and I'm like, yeah, that's spot on. But I just think for a first, really, it's your first release. Whiskey War is Whiskey War, but this is where you put your flag in the ground and you say, this is High Bank. It's like, it's High Bank bourbon. I think it's really well done. 6 years old, so it's got plenty of age. Like you taste, the oak influence, but it's not overwhelming. You still get a little bit of the grain characteristic, which you would expect from a smaller distillery. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. I just really enjoyed it. Text Jake, what was last night? I said, yeah, this is definitely a good one.
Yeah.
Now that I know that there's only 1,000 bottles and 750 of them are already gone, I guess I'll have to call some people in Ohio and try to find me another bottle.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things kind of coming off of that. Like for me, I loved how sweet the nose was, but it's balanced like on that, like the sweet grain. I definitely get the chocolate. I go like a little more like vanilla honey wafer, like those vanilla wafer type deal things.
Yeah, vanilla wafers.
Yeah. And then like chocolate covered Christmas nuts, like those cinnamon swirled chocolate nuttiness. It's the maltiness with the wheat, I think works really well. And I don't know what the malt content is, but I feel like there's a malty characteristic to this that I think is very enjoyable, would be really enjoyable to a dark beer drinker. If you like stouts or porters, I feel like you could convert someone just to sip this.
We're about 9% malted barley is what's in this.
So I think that's nice. And then like that finish, that like chocolatey, tannicky finish where you get a little bit of that barrel influence. I'm in agreement. I think not only is this a beautiful whiskey to start off with, bourbon to start off with, but I think it's got, potential as you dial in your blending on like, hey, we want to round this edge and cut off that corner. Like you all can start to play with that. And I think to put out this as your first one, I think is really cool. At 93 proof, I do think it drinks a little bit above that. So I think it would stand up in a cocktail easily. But the one question I have, and I don't know where I did with the press release. What's a bottle of this cost?
$44.99.
Damn. That's called approachability.
Shit, that's wild.
That's awesome, dude. Like for the consumer, like I said this on the last podcast, it's the golden age of the consumer. Like we're going to get prices with these age statements that will rival back in the day equivalents. And man, that's, dude.
Well, again, I think, for me, it is that it's that approachability on palate and price, right? It's both. And so we're not going to deviate from who we are as a brand with our own product, with our own bourbon. Whiskey War also obviously is our product, but like our barrel strength whiskey wort green label in the state of Ohio, $54.99, right?
Yeah.
Like for something that's 120 proof, that's won a bunch of awards. Like it's that's a very fair price. That's one of those things where it's like, I want people to be able to drink it and know that it's okay to go get another bottle, right? You didn't spend $89.99, on this bottle. It's like, oh, I'm going to drink it here and there. It's like, the whole point is, please let, High Bank Bourbon or let High Bank Whiskey Wort be something that you're always going to go for and grab, because you can just go grab another bottle after that.
Wow. So was 6 years always the goal?
No, 4 years.
When it was ready.
I would say twofold, right? Minimum 3 was in the back of my head. I wanted to go 4. But honestly, with us winning Best Blended Whiskey in 2021, that was like, okay, let's wait till 4. We'll wait till 2022. And then we won Best Blended Whiskey in America again in 2022. So I was like, okay, let's wait till 5. And then we won it for a 3rd year in a row, which was, kind of ran. Having too many messages out is kind of confusing. And so we kept riding the high, which is why you also, as I mentioned earlier, 12 batches the first 3 years, then batch 12 to batch 102 the next 3 years, after that, we were really focusing on the growth of what Whiskey Wort is. And it's not like our bourbon was going bad, in the process. So it was kind of one of those things, we didn't need to get it out. And so why not wait till 6? And so we got runner-up this year at San Francisco for Best Blended Whiskey in America. So we did not win it at 4P, which is stupid because the product we submitted was amazing. But regardless, we were going to release it at 6 years, just because it was, from that aspect too, like we felt it was done. And that's the thing too, what I'm excited about, the barrels that are at 4 years right now of our bourbon. And so you're talking 2 years into dialing in the process of making our bourbon on our machine, understanding it. I love where the 4-year stuff is right now. So and there will be alternate variations of this coming out in the future too. I'm a barrel strength guy. I love barrel strength. There will be a barrel strength version of this coming out. Not right away, but there will be within the next 12 months,
will the wolf change colors?
We'll see. Listen, man, can't reveal too many details.
Oh, come on. That'd be cool. You could have like your Super Saiyan version of your regular, you go from red to blue. That'd be cool. Or
there will definitely be some color changes for sure.
Oh,
so
I like it.
It'd be fun to change the position of the wolf too.
Yeah.
The shape. Maybe it's howling. Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe he turns into a man. Maybe. Like you could do a Halloween blend. Do the werewolf.
Michael Jackson up there. Yeah, Michael Jackson outline on the
Thriller. The Thriller bottle. Yeah. I love it. No, it's so cool. And man, you can tell that you're a blending experience. So you did it kind of backwards though, right? Like you got all this blending experience and got, notoriety for it. And then when it came time to blend your own stuff, you're like, I know how to dial this in, even though it's a different barrels. Like I know how to dial these barrels into what we think our consumer likes. And I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. That helps a ton. I mean, there's so much pressure on releasing this bottle. The anxiety I had, releasing it. And, at this point it is what it is, and people are going to like it or they're not going to like it, or maybe they'll be in the middle. But again, I think the journey that this product is going to go on, I'm really happy with where it's at now, kind of like what you guys are talking about. And I'm really excited for where it's going to continue to go in the future. So
do you all have a hybrid system? What kind of system do you all work with to produce your distillate?
Yeah, it is a hybrid system, but I pretty much use just the pot still when I'm making the bourbon. So we do a double pot distillation for this bourbon. So I don't run it through any column. We shut off our columns and do a stripping run, and then we do a finishing run.
Nice. I saw somebody post the other day. They're like, is pot distilled bourbon better than columns distill? I'm like, what are you looking for? If you want, like we talked about earlier with MGP, if you want a clean, consistent distillate, column distill's the way to go. If you want to be able to play with your batches and you want to get variety and complexity and different mouthfeels and viscosity and things like that, pot's still the way you go. And hybrid's the best of both worlds. I mean, you could clean it up with a column and get all your heads, hearts, and tails off the pot. I think that's what's fun about having a variable system.
Sure, it is. And when we initially started, the goal was, I have a 4-plate whiskey column attached to the side of the pot that I can turn on or off. And the whole point was just to use that to do, single run through that and use that. But it's the grain aspect, that sweet wheat, like that yeah. What was the cereal that you called it?
Honeycombs.
The honeycomb. That was like, I love, dude, seriously, like when you said that, I'm like, son of a bitch. Like that is exactly, I loved honeycombs as a kid. And then like, I taste this so much in it now. Yeah. But it's that sweet grain flavor that I still wanted in the barrel when we were putting it in. We barrel everything at 110. We don't go super high on the proof point that's going into the barrel. So that's also why I think this drinks a little more intense than that 93, because it's not going at 124.99 into a barrel like a lot of them do, and then you're adding so much water and cutting it down. There's just not as much water added to this. So like our barrel strength version is going to be between 108 and 114, just depending on where those barrels are.
Super solid.
Yeah.
So do you have like a blending team, or is it you and maybe getting a little feedback from a few others?
No, I get a lot of feedback now. When I say a lot, I mean, I have the final say on everything that's going in and out. But I have a really small but mighty distillery team that their palates have become so evolved, and challenge my palate in a lot of ways, which I really like. My head of production and person that does a lot of the distilling for me, or does all the distilling for me now, Michael Smith, he's really stepped into his own. But the person under him, Dylan, who his background is in mixology, he was a bartender for us, and during COVID he came back and started bottling hand sanitizer and just getting on the line with us just so he could have something to do while restaurants were shut down. His palate, man, is insane. Like I ask Dylan all the time, like, what is this flavor? Like he would have got that that cereal note and said it was honeycomb. And that's the thing. It's like, I'm always like, Dylan, what are you getting here? Like I can you say the term bubblegum, but like what flavored bubblegum specifically and what brand are you tasting right now? And he'll just like, he can rattle all this stuff off. It's really,
awesome. Really
nice.
Those mixologists are special. Like when it comes to like creating flavors and getting flavors. So it makes your tasting notes sound a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Any tasting notes that you see, it's that's Dylan's job. Like Dylan, this is what we're making. Like we're producing this, we're bottling this. Give me the tasting notes, please.
Yeah, and that way I don't look like an idiot during the war room.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Dylan is always in the so like we don't. There's no when Tony and I are doing the war rooms, we taste on the fly. I do not taste the stuff beforehand. That's the first time I'm tasting it. But Dylan and Mike are sitting off camera and we'll go through the whole spiel. I'm like, all right, what else are you guys getting? And then, they'll say some more things. Then we'll go back and it's like, oh yeah. And I'm getting,
Yeah. Hey, so, the magic of editing.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man, that's so good. We have some other stuff. We're not going to get into it, but like I would challenge people to go in and try a variety of your products. If you can't find, the brand new wheated bourbon, which is probably going to be, like we just talked about, hard to find at first, it'll expand over time. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
But, go and get, this is how I would do it. And you tell me if I'm wrong, but like, if you went in, like I would get a Whiskey War, just regular straight up. I'd get a double oaked and then I'd get a Whiskey War barrel proof. And I feel like you would get a good understanding of what you all have to offer until that that bourbon, the wheated bourbon, comes more available.
Yeah, that's what we call our perfect back bar, right? So it is, black label, regular Whiskey War, green label barrel proof, and blue label double oak. Those are in Ohio. You can find those at most liquor stores around the state. And, then the special releases go from there. As you guys mentioned, we have an Amberana cask, which is our cigar cask, which can't keep on shelves. We're going to be releasing batch 3 of it next month. And
already
it'll sell out. Yeah. I mean, And then we have another product called Double Double, which we release twice a year. Every time that comes out, that's gone, within a week usually. And then we have a lot of special products, which are these, which you guys also mentioned, these barrel selects, the white labels with the pistol caps. Those are all just funky, fun barrels. This stuff that's my outlet, that I get to source weird stuff and put our whiskey into it and see if it tastes good. And when it's ready, we pull it and put it into a fancy bottle.
Hey, and those fancy bottles sell out fast, like super fast. I've tried to go after a few of them, and I like get on there and I feel like, oh, I'm like, how many people know about High Bank? And I'm like, well, a lot of people know about High Bank because that bottle already sold out, bastards. But I'll shoot my shot the next time. That's what you got to do. You just got to keep shooting. And yeah, I'm excited. This is just the beginning, and I'm sure you all have been tinkering on the still, not just on the wheated bourbon. I'm sure there's been some other things that have been laid down that'll come out in the future as well, I can assume, because you're a tinkerer. Yeah,
we're always playing around.
Yeah.
Always playing around.
Scott, you got any more questions for Adam?
No, this has been really cool. I know I wasn't involved in the how long ago was that you guys did the Instagram live? That was super early in your IG live.
I mean, it's got to be like right when I moved into the house. I mean, within the first 6 months. So I moved in 2020. So sometime between 2020.
I think it was right after we won Best Blended Whiskey in America with Barrel Proof 2021.
Yeah,
I think that's when it was.
Because I remember getting your team reached out and they were like, "Hey, we would love to send you something." And I was like, "Yes, like, can we help you promote it?" And we sat down. The bar had just got finished, and we sat down and chatted. The bar has changed quite a bit, but we continue to go. And the good thing is, we got some really crispy pictures, for you. We like to make sure that there's some crispiness for it.
Yeah, you guys got to come into town sometime.
Oh yeah, so. we got to make sure Dan survives dry January, and we just make the trip to Columbus. I mean, it's only 3 hours.
I was going to say, this makes me super excited for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be fun. I recommend. There's a good hotel literally walking distance down the street from us. You don't have to stay there, but if not, we'll be spending several hours in the restaurant, eating a lot of food afterwards to make sure everybody's good before they drive home. Because
send us the link. We'll book it now. We'll make the.
We will be getting the thief out, and we will be opening up lots of barrels for you guys to try.
So. Well, that's what we do. We have fun, and we have fun because you allow us that opportunity, and we hope people will go out and try this because. Y'all are onto something. This is just the beginning of the party, and so I'm glad that we're part of the celebration team to help spread the word because y'all are onto something great, man. Really, I really truly believe that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you for joining us during this 43 minutes of fun. Make sure you tune in to the Bourbon Lens for the next episode, and you're subscribed to all of our channels. And we will catch you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.